Hello, welcome back to another video. Uh, I wanted to talk about test parallelism between TestNG and JUnit 5, the difference. So this was a short video. I thought to create it to demonstrate how does JUnit 5 and TestNG does in the parallel execution context. Get started with, I have a scenario where this website uh, I have some couple of test cases that I have automated. So first test case is that they will try to log in using this credential, and then they will open it and then do some validation, close it, and a couple of more tests as well. Similarly, so they will also try to use some invalid test. If I try to use invalid test, I will also get some assist. They will validate this and also close off. So very simple test. But the whole intention of this video is to demonstrate how does the parallelism work between the both TestNG and JUnit 5. I'm personally a fan of JUnit 5. I have worked with TestNG for a couple of years, and ever since I started using JUnit 5, I loved it for many reasons. One of the reasons is that parallelism. JUnit 5 parallelism works very reliably than TestNG, and it also has a lot of great configurations. I mean, the way that we can configure the flexibility that we have in JUnit 5 than the TestNG is great. So maybe I'll record another video in detail, but I wanted to just demonstrate a couple of things to start with, and then I'll create subsequent videos to highlight other points why I call this JUnit 5 as a more reliable option than TestNG. All right. So here is the code that I have it. Let me show you the code. This is a sample project. Basically, I have it. So let's focus on the test. Okay. So this is the test. And this test here, I have taken a very simple test. And using TestNG, I have two data providers. One is for a valid login credential. Two credentials are there. Another is a invalid login credentials. Two invalid credentials are there. Okay. And here I have two tests. So this is for valid credential. I'm passing the data provider for valid credentials, this one. And for second test, I'm passing this one. So that it is that simple. So what exactly we are doing here is that uh, we are actually checking login as user. So this login as user is taking username and password that is coming from the data provider. And once it logs in, it checks for the product title is visible or not. Okay, because this is a success case. So once it is success, it actually goes inside the product page and it actually checks whether it is visible or not. That's simple, nothing much. And here we are doing some other stuff, but we don't need to worry about it. Okay. Uh, Here the invalid thing, what we are doing is that we are doing the same thing, but because this is not a successful login, what we are doing is we are instead checking this validation message. Okay, we are doing that assertion. Okay, so I have added this assertion message here. That's it. So if I run this with TestNG with multi-threading, it should actually run 4 times. Each test cases 2 times. Okay. So let's take a look at TestNG regression.xml. So I have this XML file where I'm just trying to say that whatever the package name starts with login, if you see here, this is the one, run the test cases from there. So I have only one class, so it will run only these two test cases, that is with two sets of data. Okay. And if you say this, we have this configuration for parallel equal to methods. So what we are basically saying is that run all the methods in parallel. So we can give a class name also, but we have only one class, so it will run only one class. But I wanted to actually test the more efficient way to run the method, because it would be great idea to run the methods in parallel so that we can scale it even more. So if we have 5 threads, so if we run methods in parallel, we can run them as fast as the class, right? So that is the method. Okay, so for now I'm putting thread count as 3 or 2. Okay, so let's say 2 thread counts. Okay, and I don't want to stress much to the system. I am starting with only 2, so it is very much I mean very it's very I mean for any system it would run perfectly fine. All right. Okay, so I will try to run this test. Before I would like to run in sequential. Okay, yeah. So if I set it to parallel run, if I run this, it will actually run one by one. Okay, this is to prove that it works fine. The test cases works fine if I run in sequential mode. So let's wait for it. So one browser got initiated, and then you will try to enter username and password. It will log in, validate the product page. It will close off. Okay. Next test case for the same. Actually, it is the same pass criteria. So it is trying with this another sets of data. This should also work. So the next one would be the negative scenario where it will actually try to uh, use the negative invalid credential where we are going to validate the error message. Yeah, now, yeah, this is the one. Now this won't be a successful login because it's an invalid credential. So it should be error message. Yeah. So it validates the text. As we can see here, all the tests are passed. Okay. And we will get, and it is, I have tried it multiple times. It passes always. Now, within that, let's go ahead and change the parallel equal to methods. And this, let's say, yeah, I'll try to run it again. Now this comes as the interesting part. Okay. Now, most of you might be thinking it could be related to the driver, how I'm managing the driver, and there could be a problem that I'm using the shared driver. If you see here, it uses standard user one and standard user both times. So it actually tried to enter both time and already it failed. Okay. So yeah, to clear the confusion, how I'm managing the driver, I will take you to the code, how I'm actually using it. I'm actually using the thread local concept and I'm managing the driver with a very thread safe approach. Okay. So we'll take a look at the code as well to clarify this situation. So first let's take a look, wait for this execution to finish. All right. So if you see here, it already failed three times. Three tests already failed. Now let's take a look. Okay. Uh, to the how I'm using the driver utilities. So I have two things. If you see here, focus on the browser manager. First thing is that one class that does the browser management. Okay. Nothing but only the browser management. Okay. So here what we do is that I have a constructor. So if you are creating a object of this browser manager class, you have to pass the name of the browser, what kind of name browser you want it. And I have a enum, which is nothing but all this Chrome, Firefox and all. So you have to pass a enum. Okay. Once you pass the enum, this enum will be actually I mean, it will be initialized for this class member. Okay, now we have create driver method. So this create driver method will actually take that browser name, whatever you have passed it while creating this browser manager object, and it will match with the switch case. So whatever the browser name you pass it, it will actually create that browser. For each, we have all the browsers. If you see, we are creating new browser. So this class is only to create a browser. We are not handling the thread safe for sure. We have another actually driver factor. Okay, this is the actually interesting one where we are actually managing our driver. So if you see, as it's the standard approach, we are using a thread local of the web driver, and here we have something called get driver. So I'm basically calling this get driver to get an instance of a driver. Every test case will actually call this. How do we know it? Let's go to the test case. Let's go to the test setup. And here, if you see in the before method, what I'm trying to do is that I'm actually calling driver factory get driver. That's it. That is only one liner. What this does is nothing but it checks for whether the thread current thread local, this object has a driver or not. If there is no driver, means that is null, then it will actually create a new driver. Okay. So if you see this line, browser manager, I'm creating an object and passing the name. So whatever the name I'm passing it, let's say Chrome, Firefox, whatever it is. Now thread local driver set. I'm trying to set it because if there is a thread local, we have to first set it. Only then we will get it. So while setting it, what I'm doing is browser manager dot create driver. So this is the same create driver method I'm calling. So this method will return me a web driver. Okay. And with this, if it will only create a new driver if it is null. If this thread local doesn't have any current WebDriver instance. If already it has it, it will simply return the same thing. So there is no way that any test case might be you sharing the same WebDriver instance. And if you also see the quit driver is actually I'm again checking whether it's there is a driver or not. If there is not null, then let's quit it and remove it. I'm using this quit driver in the test setup to in the teardown. So here in the cleanup, I'm simply using driver factory quit driver. So it's both of the initializing the driver and the cleaning of the driver as are super clean. So there is no confusion, there is no conflict that to happen between any test because always every test will get their own copy of the driver. Okay. If you're curious about what this method is that I have a private method that actually gets the browser name. So basically I have a logic where it checks the browser name in the system property. If it is not available, it will actually take it from the properties file. I have a property file where I'm defining the browser. That's the only thing. Otherwise, it doesn't do any much thing. So this is the only important part where it is actually handling the driver. So if you see this, if you need a driver, you can only call this get driver method from driver factory, not from browser manager, because browser manager is currently this browser manager create driver is not public. So it can both of them are in the same package. So it can only be used by the classes within the same package. So nobody else can call this get driver. So it is clear that I'm properly handling the thread driver and each test are going to actually use their own driver. Okay. Even though in that case, we saw that while running the tests, it was actually interfering. So let me run and one more time. So notice this. In the positive scenario, I have standard user, but in the second negative scenario, I have standard user 1. So while it was running in parallel, because of the conflict, it is entering this and this in the same browser. That's what we noticed. Let me run this again. Little heads up. After this, what we are going to do is that I'll switch to another branch of mine where I have replaced TestNG. Yeah, you can see here standard user 1 and standard user. Both of them has been entered in the same browser. But these are coming from both different test cases. It should not happen because the sequential one is passing. So there is no issue in the test data provider. I also tried to not use test data provider to narrow down whether it is causing because of the test data provider. No, it is not because of the test data provider. Even though I hard code the values, still it actually the same issue occurs. Okay. So now I will switch to the another branch where I have replaced TestNG with JUnit 5. Okay. Yeah, it has failed. Let me switch to different branch and let me check out. What I will do is that let me go here and roll back and I can now check out. Okay. Now, if you see, I have checked out the code here. Currently, I'm on JUnit. And if I go to same test, okay. So here, if you see, all the test cases are coming, all the tests are coming from actually JUnit. So in JUnit, it's not a before method, it's a before each. And if you see for the data provider, we don't need to use that data provider and all. It actually gives us annotation called CSV source, which actually works as a data provider. So I'm here taking this two key and value pair, two sets of data. So very similar to the one that TestNG had, right? And it is the same, exactly same code. Only thing that I have changed is this parameter, and JUnit supports CSV source and parameterized test and nothing else, and the assertion, of course. Okay, it's the same test code if you see, nothing much. Okay, same username, password, same code, same thing. It will happen. It will actually do the same thing. Okay. Uh, Apart from this, what JUnit has is that it has the configuration. This is very important here. Okay, there are a lot of things to dig more to learn more about JUnit, but very specific. We have to make it parallel as true. That means we are enabling as a parallel. Next is that the mode is concurrent. Okay, you want to actually run in concurrent or sequential. Okay, and the default it is concurrent. Fine. Then next thing is a strategy. We have a strategy called fixed. Then we have a dynamic strategy, and we have also custom strategy. We can check JUnit 5 parallel doc for more information. But the thing here is that the parallelism. Here we are saying that run two threads at a time. Okay, and I have set the strategy as fixed. Okay. One beautiful thing about the JUnit thing is that if you set it to dynamic, you don't need to set as a parallelism how many threads you don't need to actually say the number. The JUnit is very intelligent enough to actually check the hardware of the system. Right now, currently, I'm on a Mac system. So based on the hardware, it will actually understand how powerful your hardware is, and it will try to scale up this thread. For your system, it might be four threads. For my system, it could be three threads. For other system or in some CI, it could be two threads. It all depends on automatically. It will actually check the thread and it will actually spin off, which is a very nice stuff, which I think is not there in the TestNG. Okay, so for now we will go with the fixed strategy, but even though with the dynamic strategy, it doesn't matter. The whole idea is to check whether the test cases are passing or failing. Okay, so how do I run it? It doesn't need any TestNG XML and all those stuff because the unit only needs the configuration. Once this is in place, we can directly run the class. So if I run the class, it will directly run the test cases with all these two sets of data. So it will do the same thing, four test cases. Let's wait for the browser to open. If you see on the left side, because I have set fixed strategy 2, so it is actually using 2. Now it has started another one. So if you see, four browsers are actually uh, 2 and next 2. So four browsers is spinning up. We'll wait for the browser to actually work. Let's keep an eye on username and password stuff. It will not have any conflict for sure. I can run for 5 times or 10 times. I have already tried it. It is not failing at all because it is properly handling the thread safety. The threads are not at all conflicting each other. So everything is working perfectly fine, even with concurrent, even with sequential, even with fixed strategy or dynamic strategy. It is perfectly working fine. So it's passed. Okay, let's change the strategy to dynamic. Okay, if I say strategy to dynamic, doesn't matter, the number doesn't matter. So let's go ahead and run again. Meanwhile, let's so if you see at a time, it actually running 4-1. If I have 5 test cases, probably it might run 5 also because the system can take that much of load. So my whole intention is that TestNG for me is not reliable for parallel test cases. Probably for the APIs it might work, but not for the browser because the browser automation is very memory intensive. It actually takes a lot of memories in system. Sometimes it becomes unstable. Some browser gets stuck, some browser gets killed, right? All that stuff. In between with the TestNG parallel, it might be flaky, so the test won't be reliable. So what I'm trying to say is that JUnit 5 is much more reliable and stable in terms of parallelism. There are other also features which JUnit provides. All that we use on the TestNG, JUnit has all them, plus more flexibility and a lot of other customizations. Yeah, so it's pass again, right? So let's also take a look at our driver factory. It's the same thing, same driver factory. We are using it, no code changes. Okay. Yeah. So you all can try, whoever is trying to actually, who is facing the same issue, then tries JUnit 5 for sure. And definitely it will be worth exploring this. I'll try to come up with more scenarios on this parallelism and also other JUnit 5 practical scenarios. I'm pretty sure there are a lot of contents already available on the internet about JUnit and TestNG. So I'm not making any duplicate content, but what I'm trying to make is that a practical scenario where how can you actually choose the tool better in terms of your context. So you should know which kind of tool has what kind of capability. So if you do not know what JUnit 5 has, there is no point of actually, you always think that TestNG is always better unless you actually discover a tool that is better than that TestNG, right? So up until JUnit 4, there was no such feature for JUnit 5. But JUnit 5, the latest version, has a lot of capabilities. So go ahead and explore it. You'll love it. Thank you for watching.